Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know how many of you have eaten, but if you haven't, I know an angry audience is not, a hungry audience can be an angry audience, so I'd rather keep it pretty short. My topic is what technology should or should not do in early childhood education, because there are some things that you should not do in early childhood education especially. Okay. So, to begin with the brief introduction, I head learning design at Tata classes. We are a digital education partner to more than 1,600 progressive schools in India, right from J&K to down to Kerala. So we're also making baby steps to enter the ECE space. So one of the things that we are cautious of is this is one area where technology cannot be a solution to a lot of the things that this area faces. So in fact, every responsible education technology player treads more cautiously when it comes to early childhood education. There's a reason for it, and this is the reason, right? So you have a very active child, and you can't cope with his hyperactive nature, and every child is hyperactive to that, in that sense. And so you push technology to kind of thinking that that'll quieten them down, right? It's a bad idea, and we all know that. It's a bad practice. Therefore, before jumping straight into technology, technologists need to understand what we mean by early childhood education. In the right sense of the term, early childhood education starts right from the time a child is born until grade 1, right? It's about how the child responds to the world around him or her and how the world in turn responds back to him. So that's essentially all of learning, all through our life is essentially about that. You have certain response that comes to you, you respond a certain way. Every minute of our day is about that. So that learning, in a way, starts right from childbirth. And another thing that we've noticed, and most of you, if you've been in education, all of you would have realized that by the time a child comes to kindergarten, and by then he or she is 3 years old, the child is already capable of expressing herself fairly efficiently in the language that they speak at home, right? So she or he has not learned language in a formal, structured way at home. There is no talk about nouns and adjectives or adverbs, but you still are able to express yourself. Why does it happen? It's because it is this phase in life that from 0 to 3 or 0 to 4 that has taught us education is that you cannot teach your first language formally. You acquire it. Language is about acquisition. And if you know that it's not just early in life, even later. For example, if you've not learned Arabic, for instance, you've not learned formally Arabic, and you were placed in UAE for about 2 years, for instance, you will pick up the language. That is, if you interact more with the local population there, you're likely to pick up language. So language is all about acquisition. So instead of teaching language in a very structured and formal way, we should enable language acquisition, and that you can do it through the ways in which you teach. That is by creating an environment where there is more opportunity for the student to express himself or her. And why do we have early childhood education to begin with? So think back to the time when we were children, when we were like 3 or 4 years old. What really happened? Of course, we went. Lots of us also would have gone to a nursery, but it was not really necessary because organically we were learning at home. Because the home was a slightly larger space, not in terms of the space that you had at home, but when I say home, it's the community around you. So you lived in a community which is more immediate than currently, right? So for example, there was a larger family, there were people around you, there was more feedback that's coming to you in terms of conversation, in terms of the kind of things that the child himself or herself used to be immersed in. And of course, a child also had more skin in the game. That is called life in that sense. But we had to move on. Progress has happened. There is more nuclearization of families. And today you need a structured space to do this learning. But when you look at it, the buzzwords still remain fairly the same as it was when probably there was no early childhood education, so to speak. So you have Jean Piaget, who talks about play as all about making sense of the world. You have Lev Vygotsky, who took forward Jean Piaget's thought and said, play can in fact improve cognitive development. Then you have Maria Montessori. You talked about self-directed collaborative play and materials and activities that would build on one's functional independence. Rudolf Steiner, you have the Trida School in Bombay, which is based on Rudolf Steiner's philosophy. It's more about connecting with nature. And closer home, we have Rabindranath Tagore and J. Krishnamurti, who talked about connection with nature as well as making education holistic and more organic. So what's common to all of these things is that childhood is a time of wonder, discovery, learning, and imagination. And the role of education is to support these qualities. So what about technology, if that's the case? What can technology do? So we have to, this I'm saying despite being part of an education technology organization, that we have to limit the use of technology to that which can trigger imagination, curiosity, and creative expression. Because you bring more formal structures into learning, you're essentially killing imagination. You see a child, all by himself or herself. If you notice them at home, if you have one, you would see they sit in the corner, they have their own toys, they're in their own world, they're lost, right? It's called pretense play. The kind of play that they're indulging in, they don't need other people around them. It's called pretense play. In their mind, there's something, like maybe a doctor, maybe maybe a police officer. So, and the objects around them are all, you can't figure out what meaning they attribute to the objects around them. So in that sense, what we've done is we've created environments where they can bring their pretense play also into the classroom. That's the way we've designed the curriculum for early childhood. There are some guiding principles that we follow as part of our design principles at Tata Classage. Technology, when used appropriately in early childhood education, can be a tool for learning. Technology, when overused or used inappropriately, can have dire consequences, especially for this age group. Appropriate use of technology can strengthen relationships among parents, families, early educators, and young children. And use of technology in early childhood education should always be under adult supervision, where parents, guardians, or teachers interact or co-view with young children. Okay? So based on these are the principles that we have designed our new product called Tata Early Edge, which we'll be launching within about a month. So the offering involves, it's a comprehensive integrated solution. It's not just a technology solution. Technology is part of it. So you have a lot of in-class resources, teacher guides, student materials, art and craft resources, etc., and designed for the whole class. And also you could learn on your own. It's essentially about enabling children to communicate with confidence, making them connect with the joy of learning, and to care for the space. So communicate, connect, and care becomes the foundational values for early age. The objectives being to be able to prepare them for grade 1. So which is one of the reasons, even though the first language may not be English, it's a practical reality that they have to be eased into an English medium school by grade 1. So we do everything possible to ensure that they also acquire English language the way it would make life easier for them. There's a strong conceptual base we're building on, and also, art and curriculum is one aspect that we don't want to leave out despite other skills. We also use technology for teachers. So there is a teacher app for teachers, and there are also best practice videos for teachers. So essentially, it's not just for children, it's also for teachers in that sense. So there are a lot of in-class digital resources. There are multiple modes of learning. So Teacher Companion app helps the teachers to plan, record observations, can communicate, mark attendance, etc. And the parent app, through the parent app, the parents can keep in touch with what's happening in the classroom. So broadly, what we're looking at is a very, very comprehensive kind of a solution, and not just pushing technology into the space that we shouldn't overuse. Thank you so much.